Welcome to Davey Dave's Take. Today we are talking about Night Swim, the latest horror film from Blumhouse Productions. A woman swimming in her pool at night is terrorized by an evil spirit. Before I get into my review and my thoughts on the film, I have to shout out Ohio University, OU, the Bobcats. I heard that there are a lot of OU alumni on this production, and that is just so cool to see alumni from OU working on a Blumhouse production. That's awesome. I have to give that shout out. That's just amazing. Now on to the review, and I'll be honest, I didn't really have any expectations for this film because it's a horror film in January, and typically January is the month where studios just dump films they don't feel like are going to do that well. But in the past, we've had some gems come out in January. Lately, we had Megan, a Blumhouse movie that came out in January last year that I thought was really entertaining. And that was a horror film, and with Night Swim, we also have James Wan producing it, so his production company is involved with Blumhouse, so it seemed like there was some recipe for success here. I'll be honest, this film wasn't really for me, and it felt like another generic January horror film. If you didn't know, this film is a remake of the short film Night Swim, with the same directors and same writers coming back to make the feature-length version of the short film. I've not seen the short film, so I can't talk about that, but after seeing the feature-length version of Night Swim, I can see how this would be a way better short film. I love the idea of a haunted swimming pool. Not many people have thought of an idea like that. So I feel like there are things you can do to make that concept a lot of fun. But unfortunately here, it felt like there were a lot of sequences that felt creatively bankrupt. And that's why I think it's probably better as a short film, because when you think about it, there isn't really too much you can really do when it comes to some of these sequences. A lot of them feel repetitive. A lot of them feel very predictable, so a lot of these sequences that are supposed to be really scary and really suspenseful don't come off that way. And yes, the idea of a haunted swimming pool does sound fun, it sounds silly, and there are parts of the film that lean into that silliness, and I really appreciate that. I love a film that knows their concept is kind of ridiculous, and they have fun with it. And there are parts in Night Swim they absolutely do that. But at the same time, I feel like they didn't lean into it enough. I feel like there should have been way more craziness, way more nonsense in this film because of the concept. Like, a lot of parts of this film feel really contained, but they should have just released all the bullshit, made this film absolutely nonsense. And because of all that, where it feels like it sort of leans into the silliness, not all the way, there are parts of the film that feel a little unbalanced when it comes to the tone. And a big problem I have with this movie and a lot of other horror movies is sometimes not showing is more effective than showing. I won't say what happens, but there are parts where I felt like if you just didn't show things, I think the sequence would have been a lot more effective and a lot more suspenseful. Because towards the beginning of the film, there are sequences where we see shit in the background, but we can't really see what it is, but it's more of an image or a figure, and it looks creepy and it looks really mysterious, and I was like, this is really effective because what the fuck is over there? But no, about a third of the way in the movie we see what those figures are, and it takes away the mysteriousness of all of it. Maybe that's in the short film, I don't know. Maybe that's what the character design was in the short film, I don't know, but for me it wasn't really effective. I will say I like the performances here. I thought Carrie Condon did a great job as the lead here. She's a great actress. I mean, she was one of my favorite performances in The Banshees of Inisherin, and she does a good job here. I will say it was weird seeing her in a film like this after coming off of an Oscar-nominated performance. But hey, you gotta pay the bills somehow. And I will say here, she doesn't phone it in at all. She does a good job. I also really liked Wyatt Russell here. There are parts in his performance where I think he really nails the balance of when he needs to be serious, and then there are parts that are absolutely campy that I think really work for the silliness of this concept. You definitely need a performance like that in a film like this. And there are some character moments towards the beginning of the film and halfway through the film that I think really work to get you to care about the characters, to understand where they're coming from, and honestly bring some interesting concepts to this film that honestly I didn't see coming. But my problem with some of those character themes is they don't really lead to anything by the end of the film. And that's another problem with this film. I feel like this film wraps up somewhat poorly. There's a lot of things that are revealed that I have questions about. There are a lot of things that happen that I have questions about. And there are parts of the finale that are a lot of fun. But overall, it just felt like kind of a mess. With this climax and overall conclusion of the film, it felt like the writers didn't really know how to end it, because there are things that, like I said, are kind of confusing, and it seems like things just sort of wrap up really quickly. And the overall conclusion of the film does feel somewhat unsatisfying. So for me, Night Swim isn't one of those terrible January release films, but the film does feel like one of those generic January release films. I thought the film was shot pretty well, and there are some sequences I enjoyed, and the concept of a haunted swimming pool just sounds awesome to me. It just sounds so silly, and there are parts of this film that really lean into that. I just wish they leaned more into it. The film just sometimes feels a little safe, sometimes a little contained, when I felt like it could have been way more creative and just way more insane. But at the same time, there are some sequences that feel super repetitive and super predictable. So at the same time, it makes me think maybe this concept is a little creatively bankrupt and it should have just stayed a short film. I'm going to give Night Swim 4.5 Davey Daves. I just got to say again, how cool it is to have OU alumni working on a production like this. Athens, Ohio people working on a Blumhouse production that will probably be #1 at the box office this weekend. That's just so cool to think about. And this was the first film of 2024. I'm excited to get more reviews out this year, see more films. I just think it's going to be a great year. So, Night Swim, let me know what you guys thought of it once you've seen it. I'm curious to hear. And thank you so much for watching. Click here to see more of Davey Dave's Takes.